So to start, I'm just going to go ahead and introduce. This is Janet Jensen. She lives here in Marshalltown, and you're going to have to pronounce your dog's names for me.
Zaria.
Zaria.
This is Zaria.
And they are here to present on dog sledding. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourselves a little bit more.
All right. Well, I haven't actually done any sledding on my own. I have friends who do, but they live in North Dakota and Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So I would love to have one of them here if I could teleport them over, because they know a lot more about it. But it's really fun. I've been on a dog sled ride some years ago. My stepdaughter's brother-in-law has a dog sled ride business out in Colorado. And it was so much fun. You know, you just hear, you know, the dogs bark a little when they get started, but once they got to moving, they weren't making noise. And he had different breeds, and he did have a couple of these guys with him. And you just hear the little, you know, pads of the feet crunching on the snow, and you're outside in nature. And yes, you love your mom, don't you? You're a good girl. It was really fun. I would like to do it, but I just haven't gotten into it. There's a lot to do, a lot to buy. You have to have your sled, and a good sled is going to be fairly expensive, and your lines and a lot of practice. And in the summertime, and when there isn't snow, a lot of them will have a wheeled cart, and the bottom of it is kind of shaped more just like a diamond shape, or maybe a triangle with wheels on it, and they just stand up in that and hook the dogs to the front of it. So the last few years, except last year, even the people that lived in the northern states were doing more dry land work than they were on snow. But I can give you a little idea on some dog sled terms, and I could probably pass these pictures. My computer is not working now, so I had to take pictures with my phone and print them, so it was interesting. But when we're talking about the dogs, the leaders are the first set of dogs in the team, and of course they're at the front. They lead the team and listen for commands to go right or left, G or ha. And the swing dogs are right behind the leaders, and they kind of help keep the leaders swing the team on turns when you're starting to turn around. The team dogs are the next ones, and they help in turning and pulling. And the wheel dogs are right in front of the sled, and they're kind of the bigger dogs, the powerhouse dogs, and they're very agile. They have to swing that sled around any corner and move themselves out of the way at the same time. And with the help of the team dogs, they start the sled in motion from a stop, because when it's stopped, they kind of have to pull and jerk and get it to moving. Now the runners are the part of the sled that moves across the snow. The gang line is a rope or cable device to hook the sets of dogs together, and that's in that picture that's going around. The brake is on the back, and that's to help stop the sled. And of course, if you have a lot of dogs in front of you, stopping the sled is not going to be completely the brake. There's going to have to be a little bit of pulling. Tug line is a section of gang line for each dog that is hooked to the back of their harness. And I've got a harness, I'll put that on her in a minute. The snow hook is sort of like an anchor. It's a metal sharp object, and it's used to hold the team and sled in the wintertime. And you just get that down into the snow, or hopefully into the ground if you can find it. The neckline is a short section of the gang line that attaches to the collar of the dog. The drag is a piece of snowmobile track with very sharp points screwed into it, and that's used to slow the team down, and a lot of that's sometimes hooked onto the brake too. The harness is what they wear when they're pulling the sled, and it fits snugly around the neck, across the shoulders, and usually crosses over their back. And some of the other terms, the basket or the bed is the part of the sled that you can carry freight, another person, or even if you have a sled bag, you can carry an injured dog in that. Booties to protect their feet from cuts and abrasions and getting crystallized snow or on gravel roads. The brush bow is the front of the sled. Usually you'll see that part that goes around the front. It's kind of like a bumper on a car. It helps absorb the shock if the sled hits something. Collars, sled dogs usually wear either a limited slip or a full circle collar that are made from heavy-duty webbing. The stanchion are the upright supports on the sled. The foot pads are non-slip pads placed on top of the sled runners for the musher to stand on, so you're not going to slide off the back. The handlebar is usually the two rear stanchions. They continue and meet at a height that is comfortable for the musher to hold onto and a place for the musher to hang onto the sled. And I mentioned the sled bag earlier, and that you can carry freight or a dog or things you need to protect from the weather. The bridle is a cable or rope that connects the sled to the gang line. Whoa, we kind of all know whoa means stop. G is right. G over is the team is to move over and to the right side of the trail. And G about is to turn to the right and go back the same direction you came from, so just turn and go straight back. Haw is left, and haw over and haw about are the same thing, to get over to the side or down. Easy, slow down and be careful. On by is when they tell the team to keep going forward with no stopping or sniffing or visiting. If there's two sled teams going two different directions, or if they're just on by, just don't mess with these guys, just keep going. Line out and tighten up is a command to have the dogs all pull forward so the gang line and their rigs are tight. And hike, hup, let's go, or different commands used to tell the team to start going and get ahead. And I've got, this is actually a weight pull harness, but it's very similar to the others. They can be interesting to get on. Can you turn around, hon? You just see somebody? Oh, no, just the door? Okay, let's get this over your head here. Put this on top of you. All right, let me get your legs here. Where are we? Ah, there we go. You're being a good dog. So, where are we here? Okay, so that's pretty much what a sled harness is going to look like. It kind of distributes the weight of everything on her. And this in the back has this to keep it from pulling together and rubbing on their legs. And then that's where we hook up. If we're going to do weight pulls especially, you need the spreader bar so that they're not doing this and stopping. She says, where's the, yeah, I know. There's no cart behind you and no concrete blocks on it. She's done a little bit of weight pulling at our national specialties, and she's not too sure if she wants to do it or not. If she thinks it's, we've had some interesting things with dogs. Some of them will get back and get on the cart.
Oh my.
Like, some of them will sit there and bark at you, and then some of them get right into it. I had one that we just lost her this summer. It was 14, and she was smaller than Zarya, and she was a puller. She'd get in there and she'd go this way and she'd go that way and she'd start to go forward, and then she'd put her head down and she would just pull to beat the band. She weighed 35 pounds at one of our nationals, and she pulled 700. So, yeah, my husband was very impressed by that. Yeah. So you haven't got that far yet. You pulled 380 last time, but you just started. And I have a younger one who's 3, and she did the same. She pulled it a little faster than the other dogs in her weight class, so she actually won her class. So now we've got to practice. So, and she's done some herding. These dogs are, the Samieds are from Siberia, northwestern Siberia. And they were with the Samied tribe, and now the tribe I think is known as the Nenets tribe. They've changed their name. But they pulled their sledges, they herded reindeer, and they also hunted with them. And she has done some herding with sheep, and she's done pretty well. She's got a couple instinct titles and one leg of the 2 you need for a junior herding dog title, where they have to actually take them around some obstacles and then pin them. So that might be where her talent lies, is more in the herding. And they also would sleep with them at night, because they had their tents, which they called chooms. They'd set them up, these dogs would stay with them at night. In fact, that's kind of where the term 3-dog night came from. Yeah, well, you thought, oh yeah, 3-dog night.
When it's cold.
Yeah, oh yeah, it is. And they would also save their undercoats, because when they blow coat, it just almost falls off of them. I mean, it'll be just chunks. It starts getting chunky looking, and the next thing you know, you're pulling hair out. And they'd spin it, and this is made out of dog hair. This is pure dog hair. And it wasn't fuzzy when I first made it, but it fuzzed up afterwards. But you can spin it, and I've got this hat, another hat, some mittens, and a sweater. And it's very warm. When it's 20 below, I can wear that sweater, and I'm in pretty good shape. But yeah, and they were around their people so much. It's just in their temperament and their genetic makeup that they're very people-oriented dogs. They love kids. You know, people whose children have learned to walk hanging onto a dog on each side when they were babies. So they're good with kids.
Are they an expensive dog?
It depends. She had puppies 3 years ago. I have puppies very seldom because it's a lot of work and a lot of expense, and they're my babies, so they have to go to a really good home.
How many did
She had 6, and that's about normal, you know, 6 or less. You don't have the huge litters with these guys. I think the biggest I've heard is 9. Yeah, so yeah, when you get, especially when they start running around, even from 3 years ago, I think now that like a show puppy, one that people are going to take to dog shows, that when you evaluate them, you evaluate you pick them apart and put them back together, kind of, is about $2,000. And puppy that maybe, sometimes it's just when these guys run, they're supposed to have a single track. So where this foot landed, this foot's going to go right into it on both sides. And maybe a foot is off this much, which makes no difference to the dog, but it would in the show ring, so they just go to a home where they're not going to show, and that might be a couple $100 less. But we do test. They can have juvenile cataracts, hip dysplasia, and we check their elbows now and their hearts just in case. Those are all tests we do ahead of time, either x-ray tests or blood tests to see if they're a carrier for any of them before they're ever bred. Unless you're like the lady up in northern Iowa that you may have heard about. She didn't do any of that. So that's why all those puppies were not good and had to be, yeah, she had almost 500 dogs.
Oh my gosh.
It was a mess. It was, we've known about her in the Sami community for a good long time, and been trying to do something. Well, it finally came to a head, and she's doesn't have them anymore. We're hoping she'll never have another one. So.
Would they put them out for adoption ever?
The ASPCA finally got called in. The Samoyed Rescues were involved with it because the Mason City Humane Society called them when they started getting like 20, 30, 40 dogs at a time. And we fostered some of the puppies last year, right around Thanksgiving. We had them for about a month. They were just old enough to be away from their mom, and then they went back to Mason City to be adopted. But yeah, there's dogs all over the place. They were all at different ages, and she's been real friendly with everybody here. Most of the older dogs were kind of like this. They didn't know anything about people. They never had any socialization at all. So.
Are they typically white?
They're white, cream, or biscuit. And she's pretty much white. She's got some biscuit on her ears and actually some on her side and on her legs, and after she's had a bath, when sometimes you can see it a little bit more, the darker. And there are some that have like some patches on them that are biscuit. Her daughter has a lot more on her ears, and her daughter has little dots all the way around one ear that looks just like you took a marker and did it. The males, you know, of course, they're bigger, and they're more like the draft horse, you know, to pull the heavier weights, and you know, because the other girl who was going to be here today had knee surgery, so she couldn't come, but she has Malamutes, And I know they've had one in the past that went to weight polls and was pulling, you know, way over 1,000 pounds in a weight poll. So they're more the draft horse type dogs, and the Sibes are more the sprinters. They're the faster ones, and these guys are kind of in the middle. The Iditarod, and that they have all different breeds, and then they have the Alaskan Husky, which is like a specially bred breed. That's a lot of them up in Alaska that are bred for sledding, and they're some different breeds together. She's a Samoyed.
Samian?
Samoyed. It's Samoyed. A lot of people say Samoyed, but it's pronounced Samoyed. Most of us that have them just call them Sammies, and that's, you know, that works just as well. Yep. Yeah, she's very, very friendly. I'm hoping to get her certified soon, her and her daughter too, so I can start visiting back at the hospital, because the old one that passed away was a therapy dog, and that one's mother and grandmother were therapy dogs too, and they've done some wonderful things just to make people feel better.
Is that an expensive process?
The testing has gotten more intense over the years. You know, they've got one part now where they're standing there with a hot dog right in front of them, and like for this one, that's a tough one to. You say, leave it, you know, and she's good. She will leave it, but you can tell she really wants it. But she's good about not taking it. She won't take something that she's not supposed to have. I know that Prairie Isle Dog Trekking in North Dakota, I know the woman up there, she has a Facebook page, and you could contact her. The Organization for the Working Samoyed has all kinds of information, and they're on the internet. And some of those links you could get from the Samoyed Club of America website too. Oh, well, they like it. Of course, when they blow out most of the undercoat, then they've kind of gotten rid of that extra. So, and then what's on top, the longer hair, kind of protects them, and so they're actually not too bad. I've been like to dog shows where there's all different kinds of dogs, and I'll be talking to somebody like with a black lab, and if I have my hand on this dog and I put my hand on that dog, there's a real difference on the heat coming out of those two dogs. So being a light color helps, and I know people have asked if you can shave them in the summer. It's like, don't ever do it. You know, I know you know. Don't ever do it. Their skin is pink. You shave them, and they're going to burn.
Oh my.
So it's a protection for them as well. Yeah, you're shedding a little now. Oh, yeah, I think that is. I think a lot of that goes back to the ones that they kept for their breeding programs when they were, you know, living in Siberia, were the ones that were the good workers and the friendly ones. Okay. So I suppose if somebody was bad-tempered, they, you know, that was not. They didn't get to be mommies and daddies. Yeah. My older Sammys, she'd just back up, and you could just go like right there on her hips. She'd stay there all day if you'd let her. They like to be with people. They're not the kind of dog that can just be outside, and you know, they'll go out for a while and observe and, you know, bark at the squirrels and that kind of stuff, but then they want to be inside.
How is she while you're gone?
She's not too bad. They go in their crates when we're gone. I mean, that's their den. You know, they don't have to go in there. I have some crates set up in between my living room and dining room, and they can go wherever they want and lay down, and half the time they're inside that crate with the door wide open, sleeping. So I said, you know, Mom's got to go to town. They run right and get in their crates. You getting waved at? You want to go visit? You want to take your harness off? Or maybe we should leave it on. Well, they run, of course, I've got two, so that kind of helps. They run around the yard and play with each other. But, you know, like walks or obedience. I go to a dog class all the time, you know, just to refresher and keep them busy and socialized. So there's that. She'll chase after something. She's not good about bringing it back. You know, her daughter is a real retriever. She may be a utility dog if I work with her enough. Because she'll go get a toy and bring it back, and she'll give it back to you when you want it. So, but yeah, they like to run and play. I keep telling my husband we should get some sheep, and but he has his cows, so. I don't really want to use her herding with cattle because this dog is an upright herder. They don't crouch. And we have nice cows, but you know, if they don't like something, they might kick, and I don't want her to get hurt. So, some of the other people I know that sled, how they work that out, because I honestly don't know for sure how they do that. I'm just kind of guessing here. I would think when they get to be 10 or so, they might not, but I think it depends on the dog, what kind of condition they're in, and the team, and what kind of races they're in. She gets Holistic Select anchovy, salmon, and sardine food, which I have to go to Ames to get because nobody has it here. But, I mean, Tyson's has some really good dog food, but she's been on this her entire life, and all of my dogs have been real healthy on it and lived good long lives, so I'm not gonna.
What was the name of it again?
It's Holistic Select.
Holistic Select.
I get it at Brecky's, just outside of Ames.
Oh, okay.
Sled, or is it
Yeah, if you have a smaller sled, you could do just one dog with it, but most of them will have more than one. Some of them are side by side or in a line. There's also one that I haven't really seen anybody do it. It's like a fan, where they're fanned out. And I'm not sure how that works, but I've seen pictures of a fan hookup. And then I have a good friend who actually, I got Zarya from her, and actually I've gotten a couple dogs from her that, you know, we've known each other for probably longer than we'd like to admit now. And she had some really good mentors that were great breeders, you know, way back, and learned a lot about the structure, and I'm still learning all the time, but we kind of work at them together, and we'll take them down, and if we want to see how their feet fall, we'll actually, you know, set them down in a little bit of like powder, and then have them run, and then see where those marks are to see where their foot fell, and then you just, you know, she go over, and it's like when the judges doing the dog show, they'll feel their head. They're supposed to have kind of a wedge-shaped head, so they'll feel this. They'll have you show them the teeth. They have a scissors bite. They'll feel to see whether they've got the right angle in the shoulder, and how their rib cage is, and what their hips feel like, and the length of their tail. The tip is supposed to be right at the top of the hock, or right in that vicinity. So we do all that stuff, and 8 weeks is about the closest you're going to get of a snapshot of when they're bigger. And then it's still, you could be wrong, but you're at least a lot closer than. Need to see how that, yes, you're still shedding some. I've had times in January when it's been 10 below and all of a sudden we're blowing coat. So it's like, okay. They're blowing, and a lot of other people say, yeah, it's colder than anything outside, and they're blowing their coat, so I guess they just blow it when they feel like it's time to get rid of it. But most of the time during like this, like right now, she's not shedding too badly, and maybe into January, there's not much for. I don't have little tumbleweeds underneath things that I have to vacuum up. It's kind of like a little piece of a cloud. It's just not, you know, it just kind of. Well, you have to measure around and measure the length of them. When I've been. We have a national specialty every year in a different part of the country, and some years ago I was at one, and the people that were doing the weight pull did a measuring clinic and measured all of the dogs that wanted to be, and gave us an idea of what size we should get. And some of the places that sell harnesses will give you a guide to measuring your own dog if you want to get one. I know when I did go on that dog sled ride, they had, we went out, it was kind of nice knowing the person that owned it because we got to do some extra stuff. We went out and groomed the trails, so it's kind of like grooming a snowmobile trail a little bit, at least for them. Make sure everything was there. They weren't going to run into any real bad, drifts and as they were going up the mountain and back. But I'd say if you got a snowmobile trail, it would probably work good for sledding. Some of it. They're not a real, just yip, 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 all, for no apparent reason dog. If they want something, if they think it's time to be fed and you haven't done it yet, you might get a little argument about it. I need to eat now. Or if they want a cookie, I shouldn't even say the word. Or if they see a squirrel, but they're not constant barkers. And they'll howl a little bit. I'm not sure why, but when the phone rings, and we've got ones that are too far apart, and they have each have a different ring, and I don't know if it's the two rings together when they start, but they'll howl. Because I'll be in another room and I'll hear, ooh.
We went to Alaska this summer and we saw Susan Butcher's kennel.
Oh.
And talked to her daughter a little bit about how they train them. And they take a four-wheeler and they take the engine out of it when it's not snowing. And they hook them up to that on the leads. And they train them.
Oh, yeah, that would work. You probably can help do this. You should come up and help me do it now. You've been, oh, yeah. I know I've seen those other sleds, but I have heard of that. You know, just something that they can pull that you can, ride on. I've got a cart that you can sit. It almost reminds me of a sulky more than but I need to get new tires for it. The tires are shot, so I've had it for a long time. But
How far do they have to pull the 1,000 pounds?
It's not very far. It might be,
Like a tractor pull to see how far?
yeah, they'll have a mark at the end of like a carpet here, and I'd say it's probably not even as long as these tables here. It'll be a little bit, maybe as long as like 4 of the tables. They pull it for that far. I know the carts that I've seen that they have for weight pull, they're a big cart and they have big pneumatic tires on them, like this big around. And the cart, I think, weighed a little over 300 pounds. It's just by itself. And we've used concrete blocks for weights, and one year they used dog food for weights, so that you knew how much you were adding each time you added for the next round.
How do they behave around other dogs?
They're pretty good. Sometimes if they're kind of protective of their owner, especially like a boy, if there's somebody that has another male and they think that male's getting too friendly with their mom or dad, they might, But they're usually pretty good with other dogs. They don't seem to care, what kind of dog they are or what they look like, or they just want to know who it is, and because they're not a breed that's going to instantly look at another dog and curl their lips up. In fact, I'm doing a program Friday at the library with her daughter, and we've got a book that we're donating, actually 2 books. One of them is a children's book by Susan Amundsen, and she writes about Hero, the Sammy. And in this new book, there's a neighbor that has a Silky Terrier, and it's how the Sammy and the Silky Terrier decide that even if they're different, they can be friends.
Oh.
So that should be fun. And there's another one. The original book is already at the library. It's called Rex of Whiteway, the Blizzard King, and she actually goes back into him and her pedigree. And he was a very famous sled dog. He died in like 1957, so his fame was before most of us would have really known about it too much. And Jim Cheskowich wrote that book, and he wrote another one now that's for younger readers that's about Rex. It's kind of the same book but geared more toward the younger set, and he very graciously donated a copy of that. So we're going to donate that to the library. So we're going to do a program Friday afternoon at the library with both those books. But yeah, if you want to read a good book about dogs, like Rex of Whiteway, the Blizzard King by Jim Cheskowich is a good one, and that's the one that's in like the adult section. You guys would want that one probably. A lot of pictures and a lot of information on the dogs and more on sledding as well. In fact, all the sledding information I've got here, I got out of that book. I was taking my phone and taking the pictures and trying to get it printed off.
Do they tend to have common injuries when they fall?
Not anything specific I've heard of. I think just any of them, I suppose they could, you know, pull a muscle or, you know, throw a shoulder. And I haven't heard of any, like, one specific thing that you have to watch for.
Two other really good books about sled dogs are Balto, who's the famous dog that took the penicillin.
Oh, yeah.
Saved the village, and another one is Stone Fox.
Yes. Yes, I've heard that one. Yeah, like Rex's big claim to fame was when train was stuck in the snow out in California. It was like, and there were people that they needed to get to that needed medical care, and they couldn't get in any other way. And so they called him out, and Floyd Van Sickle, who was the sledder, and they went to took the doctor and the medicine and got him to the train.
We recently watched the Disney movie Eight Below, and that's about the dogs.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when that first came out, there was something at the mall, and we were there with the Kennel Club, and I was there kind of with the hospital too because of the therapy dogs. And all these little kids had come up, 8 below, 8 below. There's You want to visit? Huh? Should we go visit? And she was pretty excited this morning because I told her we were going to get to go visit people. And she knows, they know what that means.
Yeah, I think it's amazing how dogs can sense when they're going to the vet or when they're not going to the vet.
Yeah, she got, well, when we go to Dr. Summers, and the training center is right behind, you know, in that other building. So when we got this far, she started going, she thought, I might be going to dog class. I turned early, and you weren't too sure what to think. Yeah. You haven't been here before.
I had Dopey that don't get excited like that. I get anyone near the car keys, and he's up dancing by the door. I let him out the door. I had a station wagon at the time.
Oh, yeah.
He laps around my station wagon until I opened the back door for him, and he hopped right in. I started out telling him to load up, you know, so he'd know what to do.
Oh, yeah.
After about a month or so of that, I didn't have to say anything. I just opened the door and he
Yeah, yeah, they,
like, why aren't we going yet?
yeah, I know that when I went out, because I go out into the dog yard and then into the garage, because they're right together, and, you know, she went right around. I said, well, is the kennel up? And I opened the back, and she right in her crate in the van, ready to go. You like to go for rides. They're pretty good riders, because I've gone to, you know, dog shows that are, you know, fair distance away, and national specialties that have been, you know, long drives, and they just settle in and probably sleep most of the time.
Do you ever advise to fly with a dog? I always wondered how dogs manage that.
I don't know. These guys can't be with you. They'd have to be in the hole somewhere, so I just like, no, I'm not doing
Yeah,
it.
you don't know what it's going to be like for them.
Yeah, I was like, I want to know where they are at all times, and that they're in the same spot.
The altitude thing, and I don't know how that would.
Yeah, I know I've had over the years people call and say, well, if you have puppies, would you fly a puppy? Oh, no, I just won't. And I'd rather have them actually come and see where they came from. So they know they're not going to get one from a puppy mill, because you can say anything, but when you see where the dog comes from, then you have a much better idea.
When you say you go to national shows, where are those usually located?
This last year, it was in South Sioux City, Nebraska. In fact, that's what this logo is. It's along the Lewis and Clark Trail. So the woman that did our logo did, you know, Lewis and Clark and Sacagawea and her little guy on the back there for us. And the year before that, it was at Purina Farms. And we actually had those two in the same region because in 2017, it was supposed to be out west and nobody put in for it, so then it was open to the rest of the country. Next year, it's in Virginia Beach. I'm not going, that's too far. Too far away, but it's been out in Utah, and it's been in Minnesota. It hasn't been Minnesota since I've been going. It's been in Wisconsin, I've been to Topeka, I've been to Wichita, I've been down to Texas, in the Dallas area for dog shows. And the year after, in 2021, it's going to be in Colorado, out in Greeley. That one we're going to. My stepdaughter lives in Greeley, so yeah. Yeah, we're all going out. We're going to see them and do the dog show too. They're a lot of fun because there's people from all over the country that come, and there's I've met a lot of nice people from all over the place. There's a couple in Canada I've got to be good friends with, and they wouldn't have met any of them if it hadn't been for the dogs. It's a whole week of just dogs and dog people, so we're all with people that are just as crazy as we are, so it's fun.
And you hope they have enough pet-friendly hotels.
Yeah, most of them, I know the one in South Sioux City has done a lot of nationals for other breeds. I think the Belgian Malinois have been there 2 or 3 times. They had a breed coming in after us this last year, and I don't remember now which one it was. But the entire hotel is booked for a week because everybody wants to come. So they've got all their rooms booked for an entire week. If they have a restaurant, people are going to be eating in the restaurant. So yeah, it's. And if in South Sioux City, they have a building that's like across the parking lot that's like the dog show building. So it's separate from the actual hotel, but it's close enough just to walk to it. So that was really nice. It was handy for everybody. So they didn't have as much, hair and stuff in the hotel. It was all pretty much over there. But yeah, they were just great. But they've seen the value in it. They really want to do it. They advertise in some of the dog magazines about hosting nationals, and the girl that was the chairman for the show said they were just great to work with. We had it in Des Moines in 2014 at the Holiday Inn down by the airport, and that went really well, and they were really nice to work with. Some people have other breeds, so they might bring their Sammy and their Corgi with them. They'll have it, but it's just if they have a different dog. But we'll have upwards of 400 or 500 dogs. Yeah, you go out. The first time I went to one was in Wisconsin, and I pulled in and parked, and I looked out and I saw all these white dogs. I said, I've died and gone to heaven. And you see a whole bunch of them. It's just kind of, awe-inspiring, and I think that's with any breed. If you see a whole bunch of like one breed of dog. We practice at home with a tire, just an old tire that my husband put a line on and a carabiner and hook it up and get them started pulling across the yard and back. We've done mostly the herding commands, and so that's like, go by and away, and that's like go by the way of the clock. So that means to go to the left. And then away is to go counterclockwise. So, and she's done pretty good. When I'm walking with them, sometimes I'll just say that when I go right or left to try to get us both, so that we remember which way is which. It's nice when they're quiet too, if they're not dancing around when you're trying to take it off. Your foot's still in it. You want to wear it? There we go. I'm kind of flying blind here, kiddo. Oh, I got the wrong one.
I'd like to thank you for coming, and if you guys have any other questions, or if you'd like to see any other programs out here, please let me know. I'd love to have you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.